Hello, I'm J. Jermaine Bay of Bologna Morris Pradium, Ante, Colorado. The acronym is AMPAC. I'm the Chief Judge of Consular Court. Today is Class 92. Class 92. What did we learn in Class 91? Well, we started taking a deeper dive into understanding what's called a declaration of intervention, right? So we started going over the introduction to intervention. So what we started learning in the introduction, right? What we started learning about intervention is really about an intervention of self. It's all about human rights, right? So the first thing in human rights is fundamental human rights. And fundamental human rights means you have to understand what is your nationality, right? So if you don't understand your nationality, how can you ever understand the fundamentals of what you think are your rights? And who provides you with your rights, right? Your inalienable rights and unalienable rights. Well, it's the state. The state affords the people their rights because the state is responsible for protecting the human rights of the nationals, right? So therefore, if you don't have a state, that makes you stateless, which means you don't have the rights that your state could afford to you, right? Which means if in fact you're stateless, you have to live somewhere on planet Earth, which means you're going to live inside someone else's state. So immediately either you're in a status of asylum, refugee, or you've been naturalized, right? So if you're naturalized, that means now you're coming under the jurisdiction of your stepmother. And for Moroccan Moors, right? For Moroccan Moors who have been subjugated and naturalized, who were we naturalized by? We were naturalized by the United States of America, right? The United States of America ended up being our stepmom. She adopted us through the 14th Amendment, right? Through the Naturalization Act of 1870. She adopted us. She became the stepmom. But yet our treaties gave us a right to search and seek out our own biological mother. And our biological mother is who? Morocco. But we have to come back through an application and consent back to our biological mother. Because it's all about an application to consent back to a state. The state is a mother. The state, the Constitution represents the mother. Everybody on planet Earth signs a birth certificate, live birth record, but you're signing some type of application that that state recognizes her own child. So all the Moors have been naturalized with their stepmother. And now we're returning back to our biological mother, commonly known as our Moroccan state government. That must be understood. That's what we have to take away from Class 91. What else do we study in Class 91? Well, we're starting to understand the differences between us calling ourselves Moorish American and Moroccan Moors. So we'll talk about that more today, right? But what is the first steps of what's commonly known as a Declaration of Independence? How do you get your independence? How do you get your human rights, right? Well, it starts with a state. So, as you know, AMPAC opens up the Constitution. The Constitution establishes the jurisdiction, and the Constitution establishes status, right? Because status is all about your what? It's all about your rights, your human rights. The state is the first declaration of intervention. You must intervene in your own life and declare yourself as having a nationality. And then you must identify the state that will bring you back home and allow you to consent back to the state, right? But without a constitution to protect you, you have no state, which means you have no jurisdiction. And now your status is either one of being a Moroccan Moor of your own state, or you're stateless like a Moorish American who has no state, or you are American who comes under the United States of America's Constitution. That must be understood. The Constitution outlines the people. We, the Moors in Morocco, that's in the preamble. We, the Moors in Morocco. We're Moors in Morocco, not in America. America's a jurisdiction. Morocco's a jurisdiction. But how do you make a distinction between the two? Well, it's outlining your Constitution. And if you don't have a Constitution, that automatically leaves you in the jurisdiction of the United States of America. It's just that simple. Let's move on. So, as the Moors know, today being Class 92, we've been going over the Charter of the United Nations of 1945, right? We're still in Chapter 6, right? We're spending a lot of time here. That way we understand how to settle disputes. Chapter 6 is about the Pacific settlement of disputes. How do we settle a dispute? Well, the first dispute we have is, what is our nationality? How do we protect our human rights? What is statehood all about? How do we get into Erga omnes parties? Erga omnes meaning trespass. How do you say someone's trespassing against you if in fact you don't even know who you are? Who are you? So Erga omnes is about trespass. Then you get into what's called a declaration of intervention. Right? So what we're learning on Article 33 is that anytime you have a dispute, you must take steps. Right? It's mediation, arbitration, and then judicial settlement, right? But really, how does it really start off? Article 33. Listen. The parties to any dispute, the continuance of which is likely to endanger the maintenance of international peace and security, shall first of all seek a solution. By what? By negotiation, inquiry, then mediation, conciliation, arbitration, judicial settlement, right? So AMPAC study session is always in a status of inquiry. We're always inquiring through AMPAC study session because we're doing analysis. We're researching. We're looking at well-settled principles, right? We're looking at international law, right? We're researching. We're performing analysis through inquiry, right? It's to ask questions, to seek inquiry, right? To get to the bottom of things, right? We have to settle this. This is all about the settlement, Moors. Settlement. We have to settle this thing about nationality, or else we can't move forward with independence. And if we can't move forward with independence, that means we can't have an independent state. And if we don't have an independent state, then that means we can't come together as Erga omnes parties. If we can't come together as Erga omnes parties, that means we can't write a declaration of intervention in order to protect each other as neighboring states, as peace-loving states. So everything starts with inquiry. We got to start asking questions. In order for us to do what? Settle the question of nationality. We'll keep working on this. That's what Article 33 is all about. First, you got to start with parties who have a dispute. And the first dispute is about human rights. That must be understood. Let's move on. Okay, in class 91, I was starting to show the Moors and what I call the house of cards. Right? In class 91, we went over this. What is this about? This is what you call a contentious dispute. A contentious dispute. You got Moorish Americans who claim that they are Americans because they saw the word American in Noah Webster's dictionary. It's not even a law dictionary. It's a regular dictionary. Right? So the Moors have been hanging their fezzes on one dictionary for decades. But yet the Moors also teach about the treaties, right? So in all the treaties, you got Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1787, Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1836, which when it was renewed, you got the Treaty of Madrid of 1880, which is in full effect, right? It's in full effect at this time, in which we are Moroccans. You got number 4, Act Algeciras of 1906, right? That refers to as Moors and Moroccans. Number 5, you got the Treaty of Fez of 1912 that refer to us as Moroccan subjects in Article 6. You got 5 treaties, all referring to us as Moroccans. Because in the treaties of peace and friendship, you're supposed to automatically know that Moors are Moroccans since the Sultan of Morocco signed a treaty with Americans. It wasn't the Sultan of America. He's the Sultan of Morocco. The people are named after the land, and the land is named after the people. But yet Moors turn around and say, no, we're Americans. So in this house of cards, this is what you call a royal flush. 5 treaties. If this was poker, this would be called right here, Noah Webster's dictionary. That's a bluff. In the game of poker, this would be what? Ace high. Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Bilateral treaty. That's ace high. That's the beginning of everything. In terms of our working relationship with Americans. Americans and Moroccans signed a treaty of peace and friendship. 1786 is when the Sultan of Morocco signed it. Then it was fully ratified, deposited, and promulgated in 1787. Full house. 5 treaties beat 1 Noah Webster's dictionary every day of the week. If this was documentary evidence, what are you going to bring to court? What are you going to bring to the Supreme Court? What do you bring to Consular Court? What do you bring to the International Court of Justice? You bring treaties and constitutions. You don't bring a dictionary. Now, if this was a game of spades, you know our people love to play spades. This would be considered 5 and a possible. And you know the possible ain't gonna make it. So this is what we must understand, Morris. This is what we're up against. But how do we bridge the divide, right? It's one thing to point out problems. What's the solution? We have to determine how do we get into cooperation with each other. Because these are the same people that call themselves Moorish Americans are actually Moroccans. So we're the same people who simply just have what? An identity crisis. This is creating a lot of trauma for Moors. Moors are going to jail. Moors are losing their houses as Moorish Americans. They're losing their children as Moorish Americans. They got to come up with bail money to get out of jail as Moorish Americans. This is creating a lot of injury as Moorish Americans. And the whole time your treaty said you're Moroccans. But unfortunately, all of our Moorish teachers haven't been teaching us about the Treaty of Madrid. Our Moorish teachers haven't been teaching about the Act Algeciras of 1906. Our Moorish teachers haven't been teaching us about the Treaty of Fez of 1912. This is the problem. It's our leadership. So AMPAC study session is an educational platform. We're here to educate ourselves, right? And speaking of education, it's come to my understanding that the well-known R.B. Bay Publications has been talking about Uti Postadatus Juris. That's all right. I appreciate that, R.B. Bay Publications. Now, let me also say this. R.B. Bay Publications represents Moorish Americans. R.B. Bay Publications continues to say that Noah Webster's dictionary said that we are Americans, and that's the holy grail that R.B. Bay Publications continues to teach. But yet we're the same people going under 2 different identities, but what's the supreme law of the land? Treaties. Treaties said we're Moroccans. So why would we continue to teach that we are Americans if in fact we're Moroccans? So I want to say a quick shout out to R.B. Bay Publications for talking about Uti Postadatus Juris. But my question to R.B. Bay Publications is this. If you want to talk about Uti Postadatus Juris, then first of all, the parties must be known. Because Uti Postadatus jurisdiction is talking about statehood. Uti Postadatus jurisdiction is talking about people, the indigenous people of the land, enacting a Declaration of Independence, which is a declaration of intervention. And then those same people enacting a constitution that outlines the latitude, longitude of their state. So in order to talk about Uti Postadatus Juris on R.B. Bay Publications, then that means you have to talk about first, what is the nationality? Well, the nationality can be found in the treaties. Hopefully R.B. Bay Publications talked about that. Did R.B. Bay Publications point out to the people that the word Moor means Moroccan? Well, if not, R.B. Bay Publications, go back and look at the Treaty of Madrid. R.B. Bay Publications, go back and look at the Act Algeciras of 1906, Article 96. R.B. Bay Publications, go back and look at the Treaty of Fez, 1912, Article 6. Did you do that while you were going over Uti Postadatus Juris? Well, hopefully the answer is yes. And congratulations, if so. If not, then here's what I suggest. I offer my hand in fellowship. I offer an opportunity for us all to sit down and talk about educational platforms for Moors. Because we're all in this together. We got to all get to one status That way we can get to one jurisdiction. And right now, we'll never achieve our independence dealing with this house of cards, because a house divided will fall. It cannot stand. So I extend my hand of fellowship to R.V. Bay Publications. We can sit down and we can talk about education for Moors. So please reach out at info@ampacgov.org, and we will be more than happy to put together an opportunity to sit down and fellowship. Because we all have to come together. We are seeking cooperation for our nation. That must be understood. I look forward to hearing from you. All right. So this is what we got to deal with, Moors. Because you got to remember, this class I'm doing right now is about a declaration of intervention, right? We're going to get into that here in just a moment. The first declaration of intervention we should have is with ourselves as a people. We got to stop worrying about the colonists, because we haven't even identified how we're going to come together as a collective of people under one name, one nationality, one people. We got to figure that out first before we get into the good fight of trying to invoke treaties. And the treaties have said we're Moroccans, but if we keep saying we're Americans, then that's what you call a false start. You ain't going nowhere fast. All right? We got to come together, okay? I look forward to talking to all the Moors, all of them. Okay. So we were starting to talk about this particular case, right? This is allegations of genocide under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. This was Ukraine versus Russia, Russian Federation in the year 2022 inter alia. Right? So we recall in the last previous classes, we were showing examples of this declaration of intervention that all of these European states wrote a letter to support Ukraine, right? Under Erga omnes parties, right? They all tried to influence themselves with the ICJ to say they had a legal nature. Therefore, they had an interest in what Ukraine had going on in terms of that war with Russia, right? So all these European states had the backing of Ukraine, right? So they all wrote letters, right? So we've gone through the list. This is a list that I comprised from the case, right? These are all European states who came together. And the United States of America wrote a declaration of intervention as well, okay? So if you click on that, it'll take you directly to this particular document, okay? So the United States of America wrote a declaration of intervention because they were invoking Article 63 of the statutes of the International Court of Justice, right? But this case was between Ukraine and Russia, right? Okay, the parties must be known. But let's pause right here, right? Now this is 26 pages. But right now we're on page number 1. We got to stop right here. Because first of all, we got to get an understanding, okay, first of all, what is an allegation of genocide under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, right? Because it's genocide of who? Some people, right? Genocide of a group of people, right? A group of people. But what's the name of the people? Well, they said they're Ukrainians. Okay, well, let me expand that. It said it's a genocide of the Ukrainians, right? And Ukrainians was alleging at the time that Russia was committing genocide against Ukrainians. But how is it that they could bring this case to the ICJ? Well, first they had to understand their what? Fundamental rights. They had to understand Erga omnes parties. They had to get to the bottom line to recognize themselves first. And so did the Russians. So what happened? How do these people know that they're Ukrainians? Listen to my question. How do these people know they're Ukrainians? How do Russians know they're Russians? Okay, let's talk about it. Here's Ukraine's constitution. Ukraine has a constitution. 1996. 1996. Now keep in mind the timeline. The USSR was controlling the landmass. But the USSR broke itself apart, right? You remember when I think it was Reagan or Bush, someone said, Gorbachev, tear down this wall, right? And next thing you know, the USSR disbanded. And out of that came Ukraine, right? But what did the Ukrainian people have to do? They had to enact a constitution in order to declare their independence. They had to have a proper written instrument coming on the constitution in order for them to have a declaration of intervention of self. They followed the instructions and established the constitution, 1996. Right? Okay, let's take a look at it. Here's their constitution. Their constitution, scroll on down. We're going to use this as reference points because we can't even talk about genocide until you know who the heck you are that's being genocided. Okay, this is their preamble. This preamble. Okay, it says the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. On behalf of the Ukrainian people, this is a constitution. They're identifying the party, Ukrainian people. They say citizens of Ukraine and all nationalities, right? They're talking nationality. They identify the parties of their constitution. The first thing is, the title is about what? Constitution of what? Ukraine. So if the land is Ukraine, then the people are named after the land, so you got Ukrainians, right? Expressing the sovereign will of the people. Based on the centuries-old history of Ukraine's state building and on the right to self-determination realized by the Ukrainian nation, all the Ukrainian people, providing for the guarantee of human rights and freedoms and of a worthy condition of human life. Listen how they're talking. Caring for strengthening of civil harmony of Ukrainian soil. It's in a constitution. It ain't just a verbal decree. Striving to develop and strengthen a democratic, social, law-based state. Aware of our responsibility before God, our own conscious past, present, and future generations. Guided by the act of declaration of the independence of Ukraine of 24 August 1991, approved by the national vote of 1 December 1991. That's when they declared their independence. Then they wrote a constitution. The Moors have to declare their independence. They have to write a constitution. Then it has to be ratified, deposited, and promulgated in accordance to international law. Ukrainians are doing this. In 1996, listen. Then you come down here, Article 6. Article 6, state power in Ukraine is exercised on the principles of its division into legislative, executive, and judicial power, 3 branches of government. Where's the Moors' 3 branches of government? We have to learn how to follow instructions. Listen, Article 6, bodies of legislative, executive, and judicial power exercise their authority within the limits established by the Constitution in accordance with the laws of Ukraine. Where's the Moors' laws at? Moors run around here claiming the United States of America's statutes. Where's your own Moorish laws? You keep invoking the U.S. Supreme Court res judicata. You want to talk about Arkansas statutes. You want to talk about Illinois statutes. Where's your own Moorish laws? Where's your own constitution? Where's your 3 branches of government? This is what we got to learn from this Moors. This is AMPAC study session. We're pointing out reference points. What do other civilized, competent people do on earth when they want their independence? They enact a constitution. Then they ratify it, deposit it, and promulgate it in accordance to international law. Listen. So that's Ukraine, right? That's Ukraine, 1996. This is what they was doing in 1996. Listen. Russia. The parties must be known. How do we know they're Russians? Oh, it's because they have a constitution that refers to themselves as being the Russians. Constitution of the year 1993. This is what's happening in the 90s. The 90s. Look what these people were doing in the 90s. While us as a people are marching and praying, all the other civilized people out there are enacting constitutions. Listen. The Constitution of the Russian Federation. 1993. Why? Because it was no longer the USSR. So they had to enact a constitution to declare their own independence. They had to establish the proper written instrument to recognize their people. Then it had to be what? Ratified, deposited, promulgated in accordance to international law. They had to follow the instructions. This is happening in the 90s. Listen. We are multinational people of the Russian Federation, united by a common faith on our land, establishing human rights and freedoms, civic peace and accord, preserving the historically established state unity. State unity. What makes it a state? The Constitution. Proceeding from the universally recognized principles of equality and self-determination of people. Revering the memory of ancestors who have conveyed to us the love for the fatherland, belief in the good and justice, reviving the sovereign statehood of Russia, and asserting the firmness of its democratic basic, striving to ensure the well-being and prosperity of Russia. The parties must be known. The people are named after the land, and the land is named after the people. Listen more, we've got a lot to learn. Proceeding from the responsibility for our fatherland before the present and future generations, recognizing ourselves as a part of the world community. Right? So they established this constitution for who? The present and future generations. A constitution. That's what? Ratified, deposited, and promulgated in accordance with international law. For their who? Their people. What type of people? Russians. Listen. Article 10. The state power in the Russian Federation shall be exercised on the basis of its division into legislative, executive, and judicial power. The bodies of legislative, executive, and judicial power shall be independent. That's Article 10 in their constitution. 3 branches of government. Why isn't it Moors don't have constitutions that talk about this? Where's our 3 branches of government? This is what we got to learn as a people. We got to come together under one nationality. Russians came together under one nationality. Ukrainians came under one nationality in the Constitution. Listen, we're talking declarations of intervention. What's another declaration of intervention? Listen. This is the Constitution of the Kingdom of Morocco. Declaration of intervention. To intervene so they can declare their independence through a constitution that governs their self-determination as a people. But what's the name of the people? They came under one nationality. Now this constitution, the Kingdom of Morocco's constitution, was first written in 1962. But this is one of their revised constitutions. I chose this one, right? Because the last time they revised their constitution was actually in the year 2011. But I chose this particular example because of the date, 1996. Okay? So 1996. So in the 1990s, there's a whole lot of constitutions being drafted, or amended at the very least, right? So the Kingdom of Morocco for Moroccans, right? Preamble. The Kingdom of Morocco, not the empire. The Kingdom of Morocco, not the empire. The Kingdom of Morocco, a Muslim sovereign state. state. Kingdom of Morocco claims to have a state, but you got arrogant Moors out there saying, we don't need no stinking state. But yet the sultans and the kings are even talking about statehood. We got a lot to learn. We got to get out of our own arrogant way and start to study international law. Even the king of the Kingdom of Morocco is talking about a state. Listen, Moors, we got a lot to learn. We got a lot to learn about world history. We was taught that we should learn world history, that law and history goes together. We got to study world history. Then why wasn't we studying constitutions of the world? To find out how they draft constitutions. When did they draft constitutions? What is it about a constitution? It's about a declaration of independence. Moors been trying to get independence. Black people been trying to get independence. Well, how do you do it? It's constitutions. They have to be ratified, deposited, and promulgated. Listen, the Kingdom of Morocco, a Muslim sovereign state, whose official language is Arabic, constitute a part of the Great Arab Maghreb. See, notice it said great, it didn't say empire. You see how they stand away from the word empire? It said the Great Arab Maghreb. As an African state, one of its constituted objectives is the ruralization of African unity. Aware of the necessity of setting its action within the context of the international organizations of which it is an active and energetic member, the Kingdom of Morocco subscribes to the principles, rights, and obligations resulting from the charters of the aforesaid organizations and reaffirming its attachment to the human rights as they are universally recognized. So they're talking about the Charter of the United Nations. They became a member state in 1956. Continuing, the Kingdom of Morocco also reaffirms its determination to work for the maintenance of peace and security in the world. It's Kingdom of Morocco. Talking about statehood. This is what Moors have to understand. Okay. So if that was in, let's go back up, 1996, when they were revising their constitution, right? Follow me. And Russia was enacting a new constitution to establish Russia in 1993, right? The 90s, right? And Ukraine was establishing that constitution in 1996. Okay, what was the Moors doing in the 90s? Okay, I'll show you. We had a million-man march. The Million-Man March was a large gathering of African Americans, hyphenated, African American men in Washington, D.C. on October 16, 1995. So all the other civilized nations of the world get together to do what? Constitutional assemblies. And what were we doing as a people? We were having a march. Not a million-man constitutional assembly, but a million-man march. We've been marching and praying our whole lives, while other civilized nations on the planet are coming together under one nationality to establish constitutions and declarations of independence, checking all the applicable boxes of international law, working with the United Nations Charter that was established in 1945. The Declaration of Human Rights came out in 1948. And what was we doing in the 90s? 1995. Look at this. Now, I know a lot of y'all can't see this, but look, 1995. What was happening in the 90s? People establishing Constitution. What were we doing? Marching and praying. Look at all these Moors. But what type of Moors? Moroccan Moors. They're at the so-called Washington Monument. I know y'all can't see that, but there's the Washington Monument right there, right? Right? That's called an obelisk. Obelisk. Right? Megalithic stone. that our ancestors built. This is what you call a Habu property. That's a Habu property. And all these Moors in here marching and praying and pleading to who? A conqueror, a colonist. We're begging our stepmother, the United States of America's Constitution, to look out for us instead of us getting together, and I say this with respect. This is the truth. We should be getting together and enacting constitutions so we have a Declaration of Independence. But instead, we're marching and praying and don't even realize we're standing right outside what's coming on the Washington Monument, which is actually a Moorish obelisk Habu statue, a megalithic stone. And we don't even know it. We've delayed our own justice. Look at this. I'm talking Declaration of Intervention right now. How can we ever write a Declaration of Intervention when we don't even know who we are? How can we claim genocide? Who is the Americans genociding? Tell me the name of the group. Why isn't it we can't come under one nationality? Look at what we've done to ourselves. Look at this. This is a collage of identities. We call ourselves Negroes at one time, colored, black, Indian, African American, Moorish American, Pan-African, Hebrew. Whereas the other civilized nations come under one nationality. And they enact a constitution to represent that one nationality. And look at what we got going on. This is just to name a few. We can't get our act together because our leaders keep telling us we got all these identities. We got an identity crisis going on our hands. We got to come together. That's the truth. Tell me the name of a treaty that recognizes any of these names. Tell me the name of an international convention that recognizes any of these non-gears. These brands don't exist nowhere on planet Earth in a treaty or a constitution that's been ratified, deposited, promulgated in accordance to international law. Look at what we've done to ourselves. This is shameful. White folks don't even know what to refer to us as because we don't know what to call ourselves. Listen, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to fix this more. AMPAC study session is for liberation. This is a platform for education, for liberation, which means we got to get to the bottom to find the truth. And unfortunately, that means you also have to do what? You have to point out the flaws, the mistakes. And it's not an easy task to do because people are sensitive. People don't like hearing the truth. They want to hold on to their beliefs, but your beliefs is putting you in a political status that causes you to be subjugated by your stepmother called the United States of America. Listen, what is the name of the land? Answer, Morocco. Question, what is the name of the people of the land? Answer, Moroccan. What is our nationality in the treaties? Answer, Moroccan. What's so difficult about that? How did we find ourselves here? You know how we find ourselves here? It's called leaders. The leaders have led us astray. That's the truth. All the leaders had to do what? Let's go back to it. Look what the leaders, all they had to do. Let's go back to it. Look how simple this is. Show you something simple. All the leaders had to do is do what? Read the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1787. All the leaders had to do was read the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1836 to find out we are Moors and we are Moroccans. All the leaders had to do was read the Treaty of Madrid in 1880. They're referred to as the subjects of Morocco because we are Moroccans. That's the nationality. Number 4, all the leaders had to do is read the Act Algeciras of 1906 that refers to as Moorish governments because we are Moroccan. Read Article 96. All the Moors and all the teachers, no matter what organization they come from, all they had to do is read the Treaty of Fez of 1912 that refers to as Moroccan subjects in Article 6. But instead, what did we do? We went to Northwestern Dictionary, call ourselves Americans, which immediately put us underneath their jurisdiction. When all the leaders had to do was just read treaties, because treaties supreme law of the land. But instead, what did we do? We ran around marching and praying. Marching and praying under these false identities. Show me a treaty where it says we're Moorish Americans. Point the name out in the treaty. It don't exist. Show me where it says Pan-African in a treaty. It don't exist. Show me where it says Hebrew in a treaty. It don't exist, respectfully speaking. Indian, you say, oh, there's treaties with Indians. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But guess what? Indians signed treaties that made them in a status, their political status, their jurisdiction comes under the jurisdiction of the United States of America. The United States Supreme Court has jurisdiction over Indian reservations. So they are subjugated people. So you want to be Indian? Go for it. You're still in the jurisdiction of the United States of America as your stepmother and your great father. Show me a treaty where it points out the people as being black. Black is the nationality in the treaty. There is no treaty representing black people. Nowhere on planet Earth. There's no treaty where people are called colored. No colored people sign a treaty with another national state. This is where our problem is. It's our leaders doing this to us. The AMPAC study session is pointing out these truths, these confusions, these misconceptions. AMPAC study session is not here to make friends. We're not here for a popularity contest. We don't care nothing about your cash app, and we certainly ain't collecting no tithing. We're here for the liberation of our nation. We're here about the truth. Because only the truth will set us free. That must be understood. What's happening? We're talking about a declaration of intervention of our people. Look at this. This is an example, versus contentious dispute. But how do we bridge the gap? We're going to talk about it. We can talk about problems, but we also have to talk about solutions. Listen, the United States of America constitutions talk about jurisdiction and status. What do I say constitutions? Because the United States of America has the United States of America Constitution of 1789, right? Because that's when it was ratified, deposited, and promulgated with Sidi Muhammad. Now, they'll tell you their Constitution was drafted in 1787. But the reality is it had no full powers. It was not in full effect until they deposited with the landlord, the sovereign, called the Moroccans. And at that time, it was Sidi Muhammad. So their Constitution technically was ratified, deposited, and promulgated in 1789. Until then, it was worthless. And constitutions are about what? Jurisdiction and status. So you have the Constitution of the United States of America, 1789, and then you have the Constitution of the United States, 1871. Two separate constitutions, right? And down here, versus what? The United States of Morocco constitutions. Why do I say constitutions? Because all the Moroccans are establishing independent autonomous states. And we're all coming together as interdependent states, refer to ourselves as the United States of Morocco's constitutions, several jurisdictions of Moroccan states, right? But what are constitutions about? They're about jurisdiction and status. The status is nationality. The status is Ukrainian. The status is Russian. The status is American. The status is what? Moroccan. You have to have a nationality that's recognized in a treaty, convention, constitution has been ratified, deposited, and promulgated, and according to international law. Listen. The United States of America Constitution is about jurisdiction status. What does a constitution do? What does it do? Okay, it protects American nationals in Morocco. It's called jurisdiction. The Constitution points out the parties, Americans, and the Constitution establishes jurisdiction. And when that jurisdiction is about, it protects American nationals in Morocco. What else does the Constitution do? Well, it enacts what? American police, prosecutors, attorneys, and lawyers in American jurisdiction. What else does the American Constitution do? It enacts what? It invokes civil and criminal jurisdiction in the American courts. What else does the American Constitution do? It's about what? Americans, because they signed the treaties, they come under the compulsory consular court. That's what the treaties say. So when you refer to yourself as American, you immediately are saying that you come under the compulsory consular court. You come under consular court jurisdiction. But listen, we're talking verses, but we're going to tie all this together because we're all in this together. Listen to this. How about the United States of Morocco constitutions? That's all the Moroccan states. A constitution talks about jurisdiction and a constitution talks about status. So in this status of Morocco, right, the Morocco status is about Moroccans. That's the nationality of one people coming together in a constitution. The jurisdiction about the Udi Possedatus jurisdiction is the latitude, longitude of the state. That's jurisdiction. So under that constitution, under that Udi Possedatus jurisdiction, and under the status of nationality, now look at what you acquire. You acquire protections of Moroccan nationals in Morocco. Now you're protected as Moroccans in Morocco. What else does the Constitution do for the Moroccans? Okay, Moroccan, Sharifian, and consular authorities. Now you deal with Moroccan, Sharifian, and consular authorities. You don't deal with police. You don't deal with lawyers and attorneys. You deal with Sharifian authority. You deal with consular authority according to treaties and according to your Moroccan state recognizes Sharifian and consular authorities. What else does your Moroccan constitution afford you? Okay, it invokes civil and criminal jurisdiction in Morocco for Moroccan courts. So Moroccans are entitled to petition Moroccan courts and not American courts. Lastly, look at this. Because of our Moroccan constitutions, now we can enact and invoke our Moroccan judges to preside over consular court. So when you say you're Moorish American, you fall under the jurisdiction of America up here. So you say you're American? Okay. Now you got to deal with the American police, American prosecutors, American attorneys. You say you're American? Okay. Now you got to deal with America's civil and criminal jurisdiction of their courts. You say you're American? Guess what? Americans come under the compulsory consular court. They're subordinate to consular court. Oh, but wait a minute. If you say you're Moroccan in Morocco, and now you have a constitution that you come back and consented back to the constitution according to treaties, now you got protections Moroccans. What type of Moroccans? Moroccan nationals. Where? In Morocco, not America. You're protected by your own authority, Sharif and consular authority. You're protected by your own civil and criminal jurisdiction in Moroccan courts for your people. Your Moroccan judges, people that look like you. That way you're dealt with by your own peers. You're judged by your own peers. But Moroccan judges preside over consular courts, whereas Americans come under consular court. But guess what? All these people right here, All of these people right here, what jurisdiction you think they fall in? They all fighting over all these different brands. What jurisdiction they fall under? Okay, let's go back to it. Right here. American jurisdiction. So at the end of the day, you got all these different groups, but they all fall under one jurisdiction. That's the American jurisdiction. However, go back to the list. You see that list? Okay, you come down here. You talk about now Moroccans. Moroccans in Morocco, what jurisdiction they fall under? They come down here. These are about your capacities, status, capacities, and incapacity. You want to be American, then you got incapacities. You Moroccan, then you have capacity. Incapacities, capacities. Human rights, violation of human rights. Up here you are adopted people, subjugated people. You've acquiesced to their jurisdiction. Down here, you return to Morocco. Listen. This is the Treaty of Madrid, 1880, Article 15. What does it say? Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization, choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco, unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. So all these people right here are subjects of Morocco. All of them are subjects of Morocco, claim to be all these non-de gears, and in reality, according to treaties, they're more subjects. They have a treaty obligation, treaty supreme law of the land. You have a treaty obligation to choose between the entire submission to the laws of the empire. You have an opportunity to do what? You have an opportunity to do what? Consent to the government of Morocco. Look how many times you see the word Morocco in here. Morocco, Morocco, that's 2. Morocco, that's 3. Morocco, that's 4. Morocco, that's 5. 5 times it says Morocco. Did it ever say return to America? You're already in America's jurisdiction. You're supposed to return to Morocco's jurisdiction. Well, how do you return to a jurisdiction and you don't have no state? You've never had a constitutional assembly. Why? Because your leaders have been supervening the possibility of performance for our people to come together under one nationality. Look what happens when you fail to follow the instructions of paragraph 1. This paragraph 2. Listen. Foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco, according to the rules established by the laws of each country, shall be continued to them as regards all its effects without any restriction. So what it's saying here, foreign naturalization heretofore. So after this date, right? After the date of July 3rd, 1880, right? July 3rd, 1880. July 3rd, 1880. After that date, let's read it from the beginning. Foreign naturalization heretofore, after the date, acquired by subjects of Morocco, according to the rules established by the laws of each country, shall be continued to them as regards all effects without any restrictions. So the United States of America gets to maintain its civil and criminal courts over all the people that have failed to return to Morocco by application. What do you think consent means? Consent is not your verbal decree. You got to get a pen and sign an application to come back to the state. You got to come back to your biological mother. It's called politics. Everybody on planet Earth has paperwork to prove who they are as regarding that state that they are representing. So what's happening in paragraph 2? Let me tell you, everybody that falls under paragraph 2, let me point them out to you. Let me point them out to you. All these people, Negroes, colors, blacks, Indians, African Americans, Moorish Americans, Pan-Africans, and Hebrews, respectively, fall under the jurisdiction of the United States in paragraph 2 because you failed to return to Morocco. You didn't return to Morocco, so now the United States gets to maintain any civil and criminal jurisdiction over you without any restriction. Without any restriction. Without any restriction. All because you want to be who? Who are you? Look at what we've done to ourselves. This is shameful. All because we don't want to read treaties and establish ourselves. Look at this. This is too easy. It's a simple Q&A. According to what? What's the reference point? What's the reference point? All these treaties. Treaty supreme law of the land. Not your mouth. Not your marching. Not your praying. Not your pleading. And certainly not your patently frivolous and arbitrary and capricious writs and affidavits. We have delayed our own justice. We need a declaration of intervention of self. Listen. What do we need? We need a declaration of intervention. That's where we need to start. Because we don't know ourselves. But once we start to learn, this so-called contentious dispute between Moorish Americans, because they think they're Americans from a dictionary, versus reading the treaties, but Moorish Americans never took the time to read the Treaty of Madrid or the Treaty of Algeciras or the Treaty of Fez. So you can't blame a lot of Moors. They didn't even know. Why didn't they know? Because they Moorish teachers didn't teach them. Respectfully, I say to RB Bay Publications, please, RB Bay Publications, list all these treaties on your website. Give the Moors an opportunity to learn about the Treaty of Madrid and the Act of Algeciras and the Treaty of Fez. Tell the Moors to look up Article 96 of the Act of Algeciras. Show them the French version that showed that we are Moroccans. Don't hide the fact that we are Moroccans. Go to tell them, look at the Treaty of Fez of 1912, Article 6, that we are Moroccans. Don't hide it, RB Bay Publications. Post it, RB Bay Publications. You should have already done it a decade ago. These treaties been out for a long time. These treaties been out longer than RB Bay Publication. So, AMPAC study session is an educational platform. We must understand we have to come together as one people. We have to stop the procrastination. We must put purpose and priority over procrastination. We have to put purpose and priority over posturing. We have to put purpose and priority over personal vendettas. We have to put purpose and priority over paralysis of analysis. We have to come together. We're all the same people. We're all the same people. Listen, we're all the same people. These are the same people. They're all Moroccans in Morocco. And let me say this for the record. If you think you're something other than Moroccan, then it's time for you to go find your motherland. I respectfully say that. Why haven't you gone back to your mother's state? Because this is Morocco, according to treaties. If you're saying you're anything other than that, why haven't you gone back to consent to become a national of that state. Stop marching and praying in Morocco. Only Moroccans should be here dealing with these contentious disputes. If you ain't claiming to be Moroccan, then please, I respectfully say, get out the way. Because you're confusing everybody, especially the youth. I feel terrible for the youth. The youth got the internet and they study about Indians, they study about black people, they learn that we were colored, they learn that we were Negroes, now they're learning they're African Americans, then they hear about these Moorish Americans, then they say, oh, we Pan-Africans? Oh, wait a minute, are we Hebrew? Lord have mercy. Look what these leaders have done to us. Let me tell you something, youth. Listen to me, youth. Matter of fact, don't listen to me. Do the research. Go look up the treaties, and you're going to find out that the land is Morocco. You're going to find out that people are named after the land, and you can go research that in treaties to find out you're Moroccan, because all you got to do is go back over here and look these treaties up. 5 treaties in the hand beat 1 dictionary in the bush. To the youth out there, don't listen to the leaders. Don't listen to me. Go do your own research. Read it yourself. Use discernment. Use that high intellect that you have. Press those buttons on your phone and get to the truth of the matter. Because only the youth gonna set us free. Only the youth gonna put their foot down. If the youth got time, then look up AMPAC study session. Start at class number 1. Go all the way up to class, whatever it is, by the time you get to it. This is class 92. One of these days I'm going to say this is class 192. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep telling these truths. I ain't looking for no friends. I'm not looking for a popularity contest. This is about liberation from our occupation. But let me tell the more something. As I start to close out, I'm going to keep this one relatively short. Please let it be no misunderstanding. The Moroccan states are here to stay. The Moroccan states have a mandate to put an end to colonists and obstructionists. That must be understood. I end with that. Islam.